Dungeons and Dragons can be an expensive hobby. Right now, 5th edition consists of dozens of books, all ranging from $25 to $50. Then you have to factor in miniatures, dice, grids, maps, spell cards, map terrain. There's a lot. As 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons grows larger and larger, and new books are printed every other month or so, it can be intimidating for new players to get started. So here are some tips I have for new players and Dungeon Masters to make it as free as possible to jump in to the world's greatest role-playing game. What's up, folks, and welcome back to Alchemist Fire, where we talk about Dungeons and Dragons and the tools that let us play it. I'm Alex Story. Let's jump into the first tip on how to play D&D cheaply. So tip number one is to use the library. I found that public libraries are underrated resources that many of us have access to, and most libraries carry all of the Dungeons and Dragons books. The average person in the United States lives just 2.1 miles from their nearest library, so they're almost everywhere. And if you haven't signed up for a public library, they're pretty easy to sign up for. You can either do it online or go to the library and just register right at the counter. And using the library is pretty easy. So you can reserve books online and pick them up right inside. As you can see on the screen here, this is just the Hennepin County Library. I live in Minneapolis. And so I can go in and just search for Dungeons & Dragons, and boom, there's a player's handbook. Now, one downside to libraries is you can't really control the demand for the books. So, for example, here you can see that there are 6 copies of the player's handbook, and they are all on hold. So it's going to take some time for me to actually be able to get my hands on it. So if you have to play D&D now and you're in a rush, sometimes libraries aren't really the best option. But with a little planning and patience, libraries are almost completely free way to learn how to play D&D. So tip number 2 I have is, if you can't find the copy of the Player's Handbook or the Dungeon Master's Guide or the Monster's Manual at your local library, whether it's because they're on hold or they just don't have it in stock, another option is using the basic rules for Dungeons & Dragons. These are free resources that you can find on D&D's website. I'll put the link in the description, and you can find pretty much anything in here that you need to start a game. So let's take a look at it. So there's 180 pages total, and you're going to get a lot of critical information. You're going to get a list of all the core D&D races, so humans, halflings, dwarves, elves, etc. And then you also have the core classes. So you have cleric, fighter, rogue, and wizard in here, and one subclass of each of the classes. You also have all the rules that you're going to need to know to play the game, and which is critical for Dungeon Masters and players alike, as well as a hefty list of spells. And for the Dungeon Masters, you get like a huge amount of monsters. So you won't find, for example, like dragons in here. Dragons are actually not in this free list of monsters, and you know, some of the classic monsters like beholders aren't in here either. But there's plenty of monsters in here that you can use to create some engaging encounters for your games, and it's a great place to start. So I would check it out. It's a free resource. If you have internet, if you have, you know, like a device like a phone or computer, this is something that you can download and pull up and look at all these rules and just explore some of the basics of D&D and play a basic session. And the reason that Wizards of the Coast does this is because they want to kind of, you know, get you hooked, and then you're going to end up buying the books with all the more expanded information like the Player's Handbook. But yeah, definitely check it out. So you knew this was coming, but the third way to make playing Dungeons & Dragons affordable and as cheap as possible is by using a virtual tabletop like Roll20. Now, Roll20 is free, all right? There are free accounts available for Roll20, and it has a couple things that make it a money saver right off the bat. So first off, you have included the SRD, or the System Resource Document. So all those basic rules I just talked about are included in Roll20 right from their compendium. So you click on the little eye up here, you can search for, like, I don't know, let's say wizard, and you can find that information here about the wizard and playing a wizard right from Roll20. And you can find all the spells and, you know, the monster stat blocks that we talked about from the basic rules here as well. So that's really, really awesome. The next thing that makes this super affordable is because in real life, when you're playing at a table, there are a lot of tools you would need that you'd have to pay for. So the first off is, if you want to use gridded combat, is an actual map or a grid. So you're either paying for a Chess X battle map, which is like $30 to $50, or you're paying for terrain, or maybe you're just finding some grid paper that, right, you know, like a pack of it is like, I don't know, $10 or something. But you're having to use that to use gridded combat. With Roll20, they give you grids of unlimited size for free, and you can do whatever you want with them. If you want to go basic, you can just, you know, use it like you would in real life, and like, I don't know, draw a quick map with like a river kind of running through it, and you know, people can cross the river, and you know, you can have little trees or something. This is not the best artist rendition. Or you can find battle maps online and use those pictures as your background to make it look pretty awesome. You can add tokens. So by adding a character sheet up here, you could create a token for your characters. Or if you have tokens that you've created in the past or, you know, purchased, you can find them here in Roll20 as well to kind of indicate, you know, either player characters or monsters that they're facing. So that is a pretty affordable way to play Dungeons & Dragons. Now the trade-off is that a lot of people don't like playing virtually. And some people have opinions about whether this is the best way to play D&D and that it's not as good as playing in real life. I tend to disagree, just because you can have super quality, high fidelity encounters in a virtual tabletop like this. But if you prefer to play in person, Roll20 is not the best way to do it, and so we have a couple other options for that as well. Now, tip number 4, for those of you who have to play in person, one of the most inexpensive ways to get started is by using the D&D Starter Set. It's even if you just count just the dice and like the character sheets and some of the other stuff that you get, like the map and the DM screen that comes in there, like it's all like, it's worth it. It's like $14, and like I said, it comes with a lot of stuff right inside the starter set. You get a full 1st through 5th level adventure, the Lost Mines of Phandelver. And you also get you get a set of dice, you get character sheets, you get pre-built characters, and you get like a little printed copy of the basic rules as well. So I would recommend it. It's pretty inexpensive. It's a great foray into everything that you need to play Dungeons & Dragons, and you can kind of get a taste to see if, hey, you know what, is it worth me spending $25 for the Player's Handbook or like $30 for the Dungeon Master's Guide for me to really get into this hobby. This Dungeons & Dragons starter set is great. And as you can see, looks like Amazon tracks my purchases. I've purchased it 2 times. This is a popular gift that I give to folks who are interested in D&D, but you know, might just not want to spend all the money it takes to kind of really get started. So it's a great resource. So tip number 5 is a little bit different, because it's going to require a little bit of DIY and access to a, let's see if I can do this right, a printer. So you'll need a printer to do this, and you'll need to do it yourself. But one way to kind of make Dungeons & Dragons a little bit more accessible as far as cost goes is by using paper miniatures instead of going to the store and either buying kind of like the WizKids pre-painted minis, or, you know, the ones that you have to paint yourself. And what do I mean by paper minis? So paper minis are like this. So this is like a quick like black pudding that I printed out. So I just printed it on some like cardstock paper, and like the website I use is Printable Heroes, and I can print it out. I can have a pretty awesome little miniature that obviously, you know, isn't as fancy as one of the ones that you'd find, you know, from like an actual like WizKids or like, you know, a big mini, but it's proper sized. It works. It demonstrates exactly what my players are going to be interacting with, and it's pretty dang cool because it's free. It just takes a little bit of time to actually craft it. You know, a lot of folding and cutting, but it's pretty dang awesome. So let me quickly show you what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a website like Printable Heroes, and Printable Heroes has a lot of monsters that you can print for free. They do have a Patreon, so I think some of these are locked behind, like, you know, subscribing to their Patreon. So you can see, for example, like for this snake, I have a free version that I can print out, and then I can go ahead and print that out on my printer. And then I have different versions here on the right that I can use that might require me to have their tiers in the Patreon. But it's a lot of awesome stuff that you can check out. I would recommend, you know, using it. And even if you're not just looking to save money, this is just can be quicker than finding some of those real life miniatures that you're looking to get. But so that has been a video on how to play Dungeons & Dragons as free or as cheaply as possible. I would love to know what you do to kind of save money when you play Dungeons & Dragons in the comments below. Beyond that, if you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and subscribe to the channel if you want more stuff on Dungeons & Dragons. But with that being said, have a great day.